it's your life. It's your world. So do whatever the heck you want.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. If you Google our next guest name, Tori Kruse, you'll probably see a sparkling crown, a sash from her days as Miss Missouri USA 2018. And you'll see that she's been featured in a bunch of press articles, and she's hosted red carpets, and she's been a print and runway model, and that was a freelance sports reporter. But what you won't see is just how impactful she is. Don't let the high heels fool you. She's relentless and fierce on her pursuit to help people live their unexpected life. She's a great motivator. She's a great mindset person, a truly remarkable entrepreneur, and an amazing human being. You're not going to want to miss this one. Check it out. Tori, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Look, for the listeners who this is their first introduction to you, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a small town Iowa girl, right? So small town Iowa, grew up with a brother and never let me win at anything in life, and especially sports. I grew up as an athlete playing basketball, volleyball, golf, all the things. And then I went to University of Iowa for college, and I decided to start this crazy journey of pageantry. And so I kept the competitive juices flowing a little bit after sports in high school.
Definitely something you probably beat your brother at, right? So
hey, I did finally beat him in basketball too, though.
Oh, okay,
I did.
Fair.
I beat him. I beat him in horse just like 6 months ago, 7 times in a row, and I will never let him live that down.
Got it.
So I ended up going in pageantry, and after I graduated from college in entrepreneurship, I then went on to Missouri and competed for Miss Missouri USA. 5 or 6 years later, I actually ended up winning the title of Miss Missouri USA and competing at nationals at Miss USA in 2018. And then I started my career as an entrepreneur and speaker and coach. And so that's all the what I do sort of things. But who I am is somebody who's fierce and loyal and loving, and somebody who also has a high drive to succeed and help the masses in the world, just by being my authentic self and hopefully encouraging others to be their authentic self as well.
And let's talk. I love that you ended with that, because I think that's a perfect segue into, you talk about authentic self, right? And how to become your authentic self. I think that's kind of like a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot is authentic, be authentic, right? And then people try too hard to be authentic that it's not really authentic anymore. So how can you become your authentic self? And when's too much? Are you supposed to talk about how there are people who take it to one extreme, and there are people who are just polished versions of themselves and call it authentic. So I'd love to hear what that means to you.
Well, I'll just piggyback off the polished version, because that's really what it was all through my pageant years. Was I was polishing up to be this person that everybody expected me to be in pageantry and what pageantry is all about. And so during those years, it was from 19 to 27 where I was in pageantry. So you can imagine, right, Jason, those are the years that are super transformative anyways. And then you have this massive competition and thing that you're supposed to be this specific person in order to win. And so all those external things were just flying at me. And I thought I need to be this certain person and act this certain way and walk the certain way and dress this certain way. And so all of these things kept flying in during those most transformative years of my life. And then all of a sudden I realized towards the end of my pageant years, when I actually ended up winning, that it wasn't about the external things of the world. And I started showing up more unexpected by doing that internal work. And that's really where I feel like you become your most authentic self, is when you are doing the internal work and kind of more or less peeling back the layers to who you are. And it really stems from failure, if you ask me, of how to be your authentic self, because you really learn a lot about yourself when you lose. And trust me, I have heard no more times than I have heard yes in my life still to this day. But I really, truly use every single one of those no's as one step closer to my yes. And that has really developed who I am as a person.
But then how do you present that to the world, right? In the world of social media, right, where everyone's living their best life, right? So I find it funny because then when authentic became like the term, people started all talking about their failures. So now like they're like everyone had failures. Everyone's like just going hard about their failures, which I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't really give you so much confidence if you're just talking about how much you're losing all the time. So, and then it turned into like, it went away from the rented yachts with the models and the Lamborghinis to like, I'm a failure too. Hey, look at me. I'm a failure too. Because that's vulnerability. That's authenticity. So when it comes to, let's say, branding yourself and putting yourself out there, how do you strike that balance, right? Because the whole point of putting yourself out there is to hopefully generate something, right? Promotion for just the sake of promotion is like, just, I don't know, the need to be famous for the need to be famous, right? So hopefully there's an end goal there. So if it's like to get more clients or to get more exposure, you don't really want to put out your weaknesses, but then you fall into the fluff of, just putting out your best life and what everyone makes fun of. So how do you strike that balance, and how do you help people with that?
I think it is a balance. It's a juggle. I don't think it's something that I can say humbly and confidently that I've completely mastered, right? Because it's just, I think it's a growing process throughout life. And I think if somebody did say they've totally mastered that, well, I don't know if they're growing anymore. And so, especially with the different times, right? Where like you said, the yachts, the Lamborghinis, the Ferraris, all this stuff, and the models and everything. I would rather have it now where people are actually showing some of their failures and their heartbreaks and the difficult times too, with a balance, because otherwise it would just be depressing as heck, just like watching the news is. So I would say, I'm always in that, like, I find the sweet spot and kind of embrace that juggle, because I really do like to be more vulnerable and share some of my struggles and hard times. But then I also do like to show the amazing parts of my life, because my life has been, if I had to say one word, it would be freaking amazing. 2 words. But I'm very grateful for the life I've had. I've had struggles, but nothing that's been, just completely, I know there's been a lot bigger struggles that people have had to overcome in their life. But I think it's a juggle. I don't think saying that you've mastered that balance between authentic and also showing what you have is really a thing. I think it's determined through you and like who you are as a person. Some people are still showing the Lamborghinis and the yachts and the models and all that. Like, some people, that is their whole brand, right? But that's not who I am. And so that's what I think really the importance of it is just staying true to who you are within your own values and morals and what you believe in. And part of that for me, a massive part, is just being transparent about my entire life, not just the super high parts of it.
And when you have people that look up to you and you coach them and they're looking to I guess unlock certain parts of them in order to I guess live a life filled with fulfillment and whatnot and achievement. When you're scrolling on social media, I think the biggest thing I see entrepreneurs, one of the biggest setbacks, and I'm guilty of this too, and I'm sure if you're going to be honest, you're going to say you're guilty of it too, is we tend to go through social media and be like, and then we get into comparison mode, or we get into imposter syndrome mode, or we get into identity struggle mode, right? Because it's like the first part is the imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough to talk about what this person's talking about. The comparison mode is why them, not me, right? Like how are they doing it? And the identity struggle part is almost like, well, do I need to be like that in order for me to gain that type of recognition? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on around those two, because I know that's something you talk a lot about, is the identity struggles and limiting beliefs and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in
yeah, and it's a fully loaded question for you.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. But
let's unpack it.
Let's unpack it. All right, I'm down. I being honest, just like you said, yeah, 100%. There was actually just something yesterday or a couple days ago where I saw a woman on social media, and I caught me, because I don't really compare, and I really truly don't compare that often, because of the fact I think of pageantry, where there were so many years there where I had to consciously not compare myself, but I still do, because I'm human, right? Like, there's still certain situations, but I caught myself comparing myself. I caught myself comparing myself to a woman, and I was like, and it was a good moment for me because I looked at it, and then I was like, no, number one, I don't follow her, right? And so it doesn't mean that. I think when you start to compare yourself to somebody else, they could be, and I didn't even have a clue who this person was. I just like saw it on the explore page or something. I don't know. But I didn't end up following her because I felt like weird feelings inside. And I was like, there's no reason why I need to follow somebody if I start to compare myself. So that's just me being completely honest and open, where it's like, if I do start to compare myself to somebody and I know it's completely, for me, I think it's like the enemy coming in to steal, kill, and destroy. And so I'm like, if I feel that, then I don't follow them. That's all there is to it, because I don't need that. I'm just protecting my peace. Not like there's anything wrong with them or anything bad. So I think that's a good rule of thumb just for anybody listening. Like, if you do start to compare, number one, check yourself, and where's that coming from? That feeling of comparison, because it's something lacking in you, right? And so identifying where that is and feeling through that instead of just like ignoring it and shoving it down is really important. But then also, if I compare myself, I just don't follow them. And then there's one side of comparison that's good and one side I think that's unhealthy. And so when it comes to somebody, like if you're comparing your success to somebody, that's one thing, right? Where somebody can motivate you because they're doing, like we were just talking about Ed Milet, right? Where he's somebody who motivates the heck out of me. And so I look at him, I look at his success, who he is as a human, and I'm like, yeah, he inspires me. So I don't necessarily compare myself, but I follow him because he inspires, and I admire the way he lives. And so something like that, I obviously follow them and engage, and I enjoy that. And that's, I think, more of a healthy comparison, so to speak, than an unhealthy version of one. So yeah, that's kind of how I view it. And then also a big thing is not to compare your chapter 1 or 2 to somebody's chapter 10. And age isn't necessarily a thing, right? Like, age is, you can be successful at 23, you can be successful at 30, you can be successful at 40, whatever, or you can be unsuccessful at those ages too. And so I look at that and I'm like, don't compare somebody's chapter 1 or chapter 10 to your chapter 1.
Yeah, but I'm also not going to take life advice from someone who's 16 years old, right? So
yes, exactly.
So age does play a role a little bit in the success metric. No, but if someone's going to teach me how to live my most fulfilled life and they're 13 years old, I'd sit there and say, all right, I got a few years on you. So that's the comparison side of things. Let's talk about the limited beliefs, because I think that's another big thing that holds entrepreneurs back is their limited beliefs, and they get in their own way. What's your take on that and how to conquer that, I guess, for lack of better words?
So limiting beliefs, yeah, they pop up in every aspect of your life, I truly believe, but specifically in business, again, I really, it does go back to comparison, right? Because what's limiting you it goes back to comparison, but also I do believe we have some beliefs that we were born with or that we were raised with and through our entire life that have really molded us and shaped us. And I think of money kind of as the first thing for me that kind of was limiting, and I had to reframe certain money beliefs, such as like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or if you have a lot of money, then you're arrogant. Like, that's all false. Like, that's not true at all. Like, you can be extremely humble and giving and gracious, and also live your dream life and be grateful for the money that you have. And so things like that in business can really limit you, especially if you're a high achiever and high performer and you have very audacious goals and dreams to be successful. So limiting beliefs are something that it's extremely helpful when you identify them and then reframe them into something that is actually empowering and serving you. Like, I am attracting wealth wherever I go. Like, if you're having a tough time with your finances, write a sticky note, slap it up there on your bathroom mirror, and write, I am attracting wealth everywhere I go. Money is flowing to me. Like, saying empowering things like that instead of staying stuck in your head. And when you read that sticky note every single day on your bathroom mirror, you will read that and you'll start to believe it time and time again. So that's where the law of attraction comes in as well.
And it's funny because I was just talking to someone about this previously, where we talked about manifestation, we talked about mindset, and I've always been vocal saying that when I first started my business, the last thing I ever wanted to hear was mindset. Right? I wanted the map, I wanted the guide, and little do I know the mindset actually is the map and the guide, because it all starts there, and everything you're doing comes from it. I mean, entrepreneurship's more mental than anything else, right?
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so so when you say something like that, and the law of attraction, Grant Cardone's a big fan of saying, "I don't believe in the law of attraction. I believe in the law of action." Right? There is a balance between the both, because I've seen people sit there and say, you know, I'm going to manifest. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I kind of laugh, and I'm like, all right, if I just sat all day and manifested $10 million, like it would never happen, right? Like I'm not $10 million isn't just gonna be fall through the roof, and like this is funny because if it just fell through the roof right now,
That'd be amazing.
it would be podcast over. But this was incredible. Nice meeting you.
It was a good run. It was great.
This was a great run. Yeah. But like there is action that has to be taken, and I find so many times when we talk about mindset, it's almost like that warm like fuzzy feeling, and warm fuzzy feelings don't pay the bills. They don't turn the heat on. They don't put food in our mouths. So I know you're very big on the mindset thing. I also know you're very big on the action thing. How do you balance the both, and how do you coach or talk about how people should implement both of them at the same time?
That's a good question. I couldn't agree more. I think it's also that like fine balance between action and also the manifestation part of it too, because yeah, you're not going, like you said, you're not just going to sit on your couch and try to like manifest this, then all of a sudden like $1 million comes through your door. Like, no, it's not how it works. Like you actually have to take action and show the universe that you're actually working towards this. Like that's part of the law of attraction, is that the universe is feeling you. Like it's just some people are probably listening and like, this is a bunch of woohoo stuff, but it is true. Like if you believe it, if you see it behind your eyes, but then you have to take action on it. And I think definitely through pageantry, that was a big thing where a lot of people think that, oh, there's all these fancy mindset techniques that lead you to win, and sure there are, but most of them are proving to yourself that you can do it before you actually do. And that's where the practice comes in. Like that's where the practice comes into play, and that immediately increases your confidence. It gets everything into flow because you're practicing what you're preaching. You're staying accountable to yourself, and there's so much to be said about that. And although yes, I do coach and train on mindset and increasing your confidence and awareness and purpose, but if you're not doing the actions, then it's worthless. So it is a fine line. I think definitely law of attraction is one thing. Visualizing is massive. I truly don't believe that I would have the crown sitting behind me right now if I didn't visualize that crown for 6 years. And it was to the point where, honestly, it would be part of my morning routine where I would sit there and I would literally feel the crown being placed on my head, the sash across my body, being crowned, hearing my name being called Miss Missouri USA, hearing my name on the Miss USA stage. And it was the power of that is huge. And like I felt it. I just didn't think it or hear the words. Like I felt it to the point of where I would tear up because I could feel that crown so much like placed on my head. But that was like for 10 minutes every single morning. And then what I do the rest of the day, the action work. And in pairing those two together, there's incredible power in it. And so I definitely think it's a beautiful balance between the two.
You talked about coaching people on finding their purpose. I think one of the questions I struggle the most with is when people ask, "What's your why?" Right? Like in business, what's your why? And Simon Sinek is very big on finding your why and whatever. I've just never really been that concerned about it because my why, like honestly, I don't know. Like I've been called up in front of a mastermind of people where like they were all talking about what's your why, and people were going up, and the guy leading the mastermind was like, "That's great, Jason, your turn." And I got up and I'm like, "My why is to make more money," and he's like, "No." I'm like, "What do you mean no?" It's like that can't be your why. I'm like, "Why not?" Like I think whys change. Yeah, I have 2 little kids. I have a family. They're my why, but I didn't start the business and go in the business for them. And I'm like, every day I don't look at it like I look at my kids and I don't sit there and say today's going to be a good day for you, right? Like that's just not who so. And I've always struggled with that. And it's the same way I've always struggled with 5-year plans and be like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know. How much more money do you want to make? More? Well, that's not an amount. You can't go with, but if I give you an amount, I'm going to want more than that eventually. Like more, I don't think it's a bad, I've always struggled with this. How important, like, and how important is actually needing to know your why, right? Like, and am I missing something here by not actually caring about it?
Well, first of all, I love your realness. I don't know, it makes me laugh a little bit when you're saying this. Yeah. Like, I'm not waking up and telling my kids this is like it's gonna be a great day for you. Like, no, gosh darn it, it's gonna be a great day for me.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. My thing is like, man, it's your life. It's your world. So do whatever the heck you want. There's this is like suggestions and things that have worked for all of us. But at the end of the day, whatever works for you, man, that's what works for you. And if you're happy with the level of success that you're at, then keep doing what you're doing. If you're not, well, then maybe you want to try some of these, right?
I want more, right? Which oftentimes people who are not entrepreneurs, they don't get that. They don't get that more thing. They're like, well, you have to have a set amount. $500 billion. Well, would you be happy with 500 million? Sure. But if I had 500 million, I probably wish I had a billion, right? Like, they're like, you're greedy. I'm like, no, just like, it's just, I could be okay with $10 million. Like I could be okay with my worst day. Like you said it, you were blessed. I'm blessed. My worst day could be someone's best day ever. And I'm very cognizant of that. And perspective is a super important thing. I just find it funny when people are like, well, here's my why. And you can't succeed without knowing what your why is, because it drives you. Your why drives you. And I'm like, and I've always struggled with that, and I guess having you on, this is gonna be my own therapy session right here, because I could just.
Well, yeah. I was just gonna ask you, well, why do you want the 500 million?
I don't. I want $1 billion.
Why do you want $1 billion?
I want my life. So okay. If you want me to try to sum a why as much as possible, I want to live a life where everything is possible. And there will never be a reason that something can't be done due to a financial reason. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean you spoil your kids and they get whatever they want in life. But the reason for the no will never be due to a financial reason.
Was there ever a time in your life where you didn't have the capability to pay for something or do something because of money?
No, wow, we're being very vulnerable on this one. All right, we're turning
the podcast. Hey, okay. You want to go there, man?
Fair. My listeners are fair game. Yeah, they're involved in this journey with me.
You said a therapy coaching session.
Yeah, there it goes.
My mind was going there anyways. Then you just confirmed that I was going to go on the right path.
Tori, it's been great having you on this podcast. No, look, I grew up. I don't have a rags to riches story. I grew up in a really privileged in every sense of the word lifestyle. My father worked hard to make sure that we had everything possible and anything we want was possible. I lived a very, very blessed life. Like do I have it's almost funny though when someone's like, do you have like struggles? Yeah, but I'm always like cognizant to like talk about those struggles, because that's like someone's like outcome to their struggle is my struggle. So I'm very aware of perspective.
But I think even like those struggles too, and I'm in the same boat, right? Like I've had some big struggles and things, but I've kind of overshadowed them because I'm like, oh well, somebody else has it way worse than I do. And like you said, that I've never heard it put like that, but that's actually a very good way of putting it. Like your struggle is somebody else's outcome. That's crazy. Like that's like we got to write that down. That was a good one. But
copyright.
Yeah.
To record it.
Yeah. But it's so true. And I've minimized some of my pain and my struggles and challenges, but that doesn't mean that they're any bigger or not valuable not, but I don't know what the right word is for it, but it doesn't mean that they're any better or worse than the other person's. They're our own struggles and our own things that we've faced in our life. So who's to compare it to somebody else's who it looks much worse to us because we've maybe grown up in a great environment and never really had to sacrifice that much as like a child or something like that, where other people have. But that's been their story. This is our story. And so I think it's also like not devaluing is what I'm trying to say, is like, don't devalue your own challenges and struggles just because you have lived a fairly blessed and very amazing life. There's still challenges and struggles within that. So I wouldn't devalue that either. But yeah, I think it's interesting. So I think either it goes one or two ways when you were saying that, where it can go one of two ways when you want and you crave a lot of money, or you have this big goal or dream. And I asked you, like, well, was there a time where you didn't have that? It's either, well, you didn't have it, so you're like, oh my God, I want to do everything possible so my kids don't have to go through, my family doesn't have to go through, and you personally, right? Like, you don't have to ever go through that pain that you had to go through in your past. Or it could be something like, it sounds like we're kind of in the same situation where, like, I didn't really struggle. I didn't have that financial pain when I was a child. My parents have been very successful, and I feel very grateful for that because I never had to feel that pain of struggle or lack. And so for me, and I think it sounds like for you, where you're like, I want this amount of wealth, what drives you is that you know what it's been like, you know, that feeling of having this amazing life and what money can provide you as well. And so it's either one or two, it like motivates you in different ways. And so I think but I feel like you hear more times, especially with, and I'll just say for motivational speakers, because I hear this all the time on stage, and I fought with this so hard, Jason, was like, I've had an amazing childhood. And yes, I've had a lot of deaths. I've had bad relationships. I've had a lot of no's and failures. But like, I heard all my no's because I was going to compete at Miss USA. Like, like what? So, but it also, that's why I say don't devalue it, because that's our own story. And it can preach, right? Like, it can impact people still through that journey. And I had to learn that, because you hear more times than not when you're speaking at an event or even on social media, you see most people, they're like, oh, well, I came from nothing and look where I am now. And I'm like, I don't have that story. And I fought with that so hard until, honestly, just like I would say this year, where I finally like, no, I'm going to freaking own up to it. And I have a lot to share with people, and I can impact the world by sharing my story and some of my personal struggles too. It doesn't matter, like, if I had a great childhood or not, we still had our own crap.
I agree. I have a different relationship with money. I think, I had to unlearn a lot of my thoughts about money, right? About like, hold on to it, save it, whatever. And that it actually works the opposite way. It's almost like in a relationship, the more you try to hold on to someone, the more they actually want to leave you. Right? You're clingy. Can you please let go? Let me, and if you kind of understand that money works in abundance, like that type of mindset, it's actually pretty funny, because like you actually end up being a lot more freer with your money. You don't have to be reckless, and you'll actually make more. I make no apologies for it. I think money's super important. Anyone who tells you it's not important,
they've never had it.
They've never had it, and when they need it, they'll tell you how important it is, and they wish they had it. So, shifting gears and out of my own therapy session for a second.
All right, we're out.
Yeah, we're out.
I'll send you an invoice.
It was a good run. Let's talk about, one of the things that you talk about is relationships and healthy boundaries, right? And making sure there's healthy boundaries. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so man, that's a wide open question right there. I could go a lot of different ways, but boundaries are huge, I think, in every aspect of life, like whether it's with yourself, whether it's with your family, your friends, in business. It was something, heck, I didn't even know what the word boundaries meant 2 years ago. And then I was in a relationship that was extremely unhealthy, and I didn't realize that it was really like I had like people pleasing patterns and codependency, and it was crazy because I've been at this point like competed at Miss USA, like my confidence, I've worked on it my whole life, these and I've always been a very positive person, and I feel like a very strong individual as well, but also very, very loving and wear my heart on my sleeve. So there were some people pleasing patterns that popped up, which also led to like not very many boundaries at all. Like I said, I didn't even know what the word meant. And so it got, because of that, because of my unawareness, I attracted a relationship that was extremely unhealthy, and it knocked my confidence, my self-esteem, everything down during one of the most important times in my life of competing at Miss USA. And I didn't realize till I was out of that relationship that I really had no boundaries. And so it's super important to, I think boundaries come with knowing who you are too. And I didn't necessarily, I was at that learning point of really discovering like who Tori was, but then standing in my ground of who I was. And when you know who you are, you can set much better boundaries when it comes to relationships. And on that note, even with relationships, you have a healthier relationship, kind of like what you just said. Like you have healthier relationships when you're both individual people and you both have your own specific boundaries. And that was huge in learning that. And then also for me, it was with family too, because we're a super tight knit group, like a family, and we're all very, very close. We talk all the time. We see each other pretty frequently. And also with friends, all the like being able, there's so much power in being able to say no. But when you get to the point where you can say no to something that you actually want to do, but you know is not best for you, without feeling guilty about it, that's a whole nother ballgame.
But talk about that for like, you know, people don't like saying no. They don't like disappointing people. I think that's one of the hardest things to get around. But I actually think if you look back at anyone you respect, when they said no to you, you never really took so offense to it. Why do we have that belief that like everyone we say no to is going to be insulted? And if they are insulted, that's more their problem than your problem?
Man, I don't know. I mean, that's $1 million question. But I think when you say no to someone and they respect it, those are the people who you want to surround yourself with. And the people who, when you say no to and they don't respect it and they're like angry or upset or whatever, then, well, it's kind of like, well, if you don't respect my no, it's not somebody you want to hang around with, right?
And so it's almost like the circle of people you're with, like, right? So I'll use you as an example. I'm sure you had friends who were probably jealous when you were competing in Miss USA and doing all these things, right? But what I find funny is that friends and family are usually the last people to come around. We always look at them that they should be the most supportive people, but they're usually not, right? They're usually the first to like, because either they're not living their dreams, and so it makes you uncomfortable, or they love you so much that they're scared of your disappointment and they want to protect you. But either way, that's still bad. So, I mean, there's so many qualifiers to the people you hang around with, and as you get older, you realize that you start needing those more, and then you almost have to like break up with friends that you've had for like so long.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think this is the part where it comes in where I have to own up to my family and my childhood of how I was blessed, where I've never had my immediate family jealous of me. They've always been extremely supportive. And that's also a huge reason for success, is because I've had those, and I would say maybe extended, and maybe that's too what you're talking about, but it's more like my inner circle of family members, my immediate family, have always been over the top supportive. Even if something they're like don't really understand it, they always are like, Tori, you can do it. I believe in you. You can do anything you put your mind to.
What about your friends?
So as far as my friends, I've had amazing friends too, but there's been friends that I personally have had to break up with, because not that they didn't support me, but they didn't support me in a roundabout way by certain decisions that we're making when they knew that wasn't something that I really necessarily approved of, when they did things kind of behind my back. So there was one specific person that really pops into mind that I had to, when I moved to St. Louis, I was really good friends with him, and we ended up having to break up as friends because he was.
What's his name? We'll call him out on here. Just joking.
No, yeah. All right. Hey, that's what Brad Lee did to me on his podcast too. He's like, "Hey, what's your ex's name that treated you like crap?" I'm like, I am not gonna say his name.
Brad Lee does an incredible job getting you to talk about things you had like he was on the podcast and I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to edit all this out because we're like, he's like, no man, this is gonna make your podcast. I'm like, no, we're editing all this out.
Oh, yeah. I know. No, he's awesome. He's hilarious. Yeah. But yeah, so he did the same thing. But you actually said no. So I wouldn't. But I don't blast anybody's name. So. But no, there was a friend who you do have to break up with friends sometimes if you want to level up, and like if they're making certain decisions in their life, like you're not going to change anybody. Trust me, I've tried to change a couple boyfriends before, and it does not happen. And I'm not in the game to change anyone anymore. So you might as well, you need to start, if anybody's single listening to this, start dating somebody that fits your reality of your current moment and your future. Don't think like, oh, so-and-so will change it. No, doesn't happen here. But
if you're single and listening to this, also take stock with who you are, right? Don't be like, I'm sitting there waiting for this person, and you're like, let's be honest, right?
Yeah, you have to.
Everyone needs to be honest with themselves a little bit too about Giselle wasn't walking into my town and into my restaurant to pick me up anytime soon, right? So I could be single for the rest of my life waiting for that to happen.
Well, that's you got to set realistic goals here.
There we go. I'm not beating out Tom Brady anytime soon. Sorry,
yeah.
I want to end with this because I think and I could be really wrong, but I think to compete for Miss America and to go to that type of level, it takes, and it sounds like you have it, a certain amount of confidence, right? And real confidence, right? You can't really fake that. But it's such a judgmental type of industry, pageantry, because the whole thing is you are being judged. There are judges, right? Like, so it's not necessarily bad. You're being judged. And there's a lot of, maybe you don't fit the bill for here, or you shouldn't do this, or that wasn't the right answer, or you didn't look good in that outfit. There's so many different areas and components to a lot of those things that could knock you down. How do you build that winning mindset and confidence, and how would you translate that to the listeners now on how they could go and build that type of confidence that no matter what, no matter who's judging you, no matter what you're doing, you can still rise above it and be confident? Because I think you're a perfect person to talk about that.
Thank you. And phenomenal question. Number one, I would say coaches and mentors. It's the number one thing. I have had over 22 coaches and mentors in the past 10 years because most of those came from the pageant world, because I don't believe there's one size fits all for a coach or mentor. I had a different one for runway walking, for interview, for current events, for my mindset and confidence, for hair and makeup even. And all of these different things, but that one really came in handy, after now that I'm on camera all the time. So I'm like, that was a good investment. But all of them were a good investment because I wrote off of their belief before I believed in myself. And so in order to create a winning mindset, a lot of people think that it's these special little techniques and tricks and gratitudes and goal statements, which that does help. But bigger than that, I truly believe is finding coaches and mentors who believe in you and see your potential before you believe in it yourself. And that starts to create that belief of that winning mindset in your head. I was never going to train for Miss Missouri. I was never training for Miss USA. I was training to be Miss Universe every single year. And so I had to find these coaches and mentors that believed in me that I could wholeheartedly be Miss Universe. And so finding those people, that will create your winning mindset. Also, never saying if, but when. It's always when. I remember when I was going, and I still today in business, it's always like when I speak on Tony Robbins' stage, when I'm on Ed Milet's podcast, when I have so-and-so on my podcast. Like, it's always when. It's not if. And so that naturally creates that belief in yourself that you are going to be winning. You are going to accomplish that goal or that dream. And so that's definitely huge. Every day of the week when I was competing for Miss USA, I remember at that time my boyfriend's family was always like, well, so if you win, you actually moved to New York City, right? And I was like, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you right. And then like, oh, I'm sorry. I mean, when you win. And I was like, okay, yeah, when I win, I'll be moving to New York City. Like, so that was I just had that conviction, like wholeheartedly pushing all the time. So definitely to create that winning mindset is to level up your mentors and coaches. It's always if, not when. And then the third thing is just practice. practice, 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 whatever your goal is. When I placed first runner up in 2017, before I won the next year, I actually moved out to Los Angeles and I created an at-home studio in my Airbnb in Los Angeles. I went to Party City and I rigged up this whole at-home studio because at that time I wanted to be a sports reporter. So I was like, well, I have no footage. I have no contacts. How the heck do I think I'm going to be on the sidelines interviewing next to Aaron Andrews if I don't start working towards it? And because I wasn't confident in it yet. And so what I did was I went and rigged up this Party City at-home studio. I would watch a game on TV. I had a microphone. I got my sports reporting outfit on, and I would go over in my at-home studio and report on that game. And I just started creating this footage and threw it all together, emailed it to Fox Sports, the same dude who hired Aaron Andrews, and he called me in, and I ended up going to Fox Sports 2 different times in LA because I did this hodgepodge of a video, and it just showed that I was doing it. And little did I know that those moments of when I was training for sports reporting at that time, it was actually prepping me for being a motivational speaker now and being on camera with a microphone. And so I would say mentors help you win, mentors and coaches, if not win. And then also third, practice. And practice before you're ready, and don't be scared to look like a fool.
Amazing answer. I definitely could not have said it better myself. Tori, thank you so much. For the listeners who want to reach out to you, they fall in love with you, they want to reach out to you, and they want to learn more, how can they reach you?
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks, Jason, for having me on. This has been awesome. And my Instagram is at Miss Tori Kruse, so MissToriKruse, or you can visit my website, torikruse.com. You can find me on either place and send me a DM. I'm always happy to connect with listeners and love to hear your heart and love to hear what you're up to. So thanks again, Jason. This has been awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.